Hello, everybody, and welcome to the McRADcast. Today, I'm joined by two good friends and local podcasters, Josh Briley and Richard Mulliken.
What's going on, man? Thanks for having us.
How's it going, man?
Yeah, good. I'm glad you guys could make it. I was, it's kind of cool because I was on you guys' show.
Yeah.
Use guys.
Use guys?
Did I just say that?
Use guys?
Yeah.
He's Canadian.
So I was on y'all's podcast. It's been a while.
It's been about a year now.
Yeah, it's been about a year, and I was talking about starting a podcast back then, and finally I did. I was dragging my feet a little bit. So it's cool to have you guys on here.
Yeah.
Excited.
I mean, I'm excited to do another show other than ours, and we don't get to travel much. You know, Josh having his kids and wife, I have my wife. We don't get to go on the road that much. So this is like our first road trip as a show.
Nice.
So we recorded a show on the way down here. Just off my phone.
Oh, cool.
It's going to sound like crap, but I mean, it's just one of those things. You know, we get a lot of road stories. Some of the best stuff we talk about is on the road. Like, you know, some of the things that we probably can't say for our job purposes because we'd get fired immediately. But we say a lot of stuff, and a lot of times we go, man, we should have just been recording that whole time.
Right.
So that's kind of what we did on the way down here. So it's good to be here, man. It's kind of fun. Like I said before, you have an awesome setup. I
appreciate it, man. It took some. I did some research and you know, spent more money than I probably should have. But the one thing I've gotten so far is it sounds like quality sounds good.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's what I was going for, because you got to throw out a decent product up front for people to stick around, because I don't know how interesting I'm going to be. So it's like at least it'll be a good sounding thing.
We don't have a theme, so we have to hit them with something.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we were first starting, that was what people were hitting with us. They were like, "What's your gimmick? What's your theme?" And for a while, we really tried for wrestling, and then just getting any famous people that we could connect with on social media that would actually do the show and were up for it. And then we just kind of, you know, I don't want a theme. I think we should just shoot and, you know, just have fun talking about whatever makes us laugh. And it's been working for us so far.
That's pretty much where we've decided we're at right now, is because, like, if you start from zero, there's nowhere to go down from there, right? And so as long as we're having fun, we've decided that we're going to do it as long as we can keep getting people to come on. And then we've got the review part where it's just he and I talking, you know, from time to time. And so we have fun doing that. So as long as we're having fun, we don't really care how many people are listening. We'd like people to listen, but if they don't, then I think the more important thing is for us to have a good time with it.
Yeah, and that's been something that we did. And like I said, we started out so just janky, man. We started out with a laptop at Josh's house, and we would plug a splitter into the microphone spot and just plug up two mics, and then the headphone spot, we'd have our headphones plugged into a splitter there, and we could hear ourselves, just kind of like how we have headphones on now, but everything was like a millisecond delay.
Oh, boy.
Oh, wow.
And so in the first shows, it sounds like we're totally drunk, and we might have been, but
there's no promises.
Because we're sitting there talking. Oh, crap. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, if anyone has never experienced that before,
Yeah.
if you're speaking, and it happens on phones too. So if you're speaking to where you can hear yourself amplified through like a headset or something, and there's a delay, you cannot power through it. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like a badass that can do it, but you will start doing that, and and then it's echoing too. So it's just like it's terrible.
Oddly enough, we got good at it.
Yeah,
because we did it for like 6 months, 7 months before we got a mixer, and we got so good at it that when we got the mixing board, it threw us off that we weren't echoing.
Yeah, it's kind of like those special goggles you can get to experience like upside down world.
Yeah,
and then if you wear them for so long, your eyes adjust and your brain literally flips the world right side up again. And then when you take those glasses off, it does the thing where it flips them upside down again, and then there's a time period to where you're upside down until your brain fixes it.
That sounds like a torture technique.
It does.
I don't know why anybody would buy that.
They do that now instead of waterboarding, right?
Put these glasses
It's more
on.
humane at the very least.
So what's the podcast you guys do is P3 Radio?
Yeah, P3 Radio. You can find it the same way you find your show. It's all one word, P3 Radio. We talk about everything, but I think the ground rules we have is no religion or politics. We've shied away from politics for the most part, unless Josh gets liquored up and starts yelling at Mullins.
No, I didn't throw out any kind of parties or anything like that.
No.
I was just spouting off conspiracies that I heard on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, and it wasn't even conspiracies. He just kept saying a name. Tell me about Alex Smith. That's the exact
Who was
name.
the quarterback of the 49ers at that point? But, I, as you can imagine, because you said you were on our show before, I don't remember that. I'm glad that we can have this cordial meeting again.
Yeah.
And we can, because the night that you did our show, that was the night that I quit drinking.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, you were there for the
Ground zero.
for every bit of
rock
it.
bottom.
Well, yeah, that well, I didn't have a bad experience by any
No,
means.
no, no, no.
Right,
This is
right.
not
No,
nothing
I
like
did.
that.
I did afterwards.
Oh yeah.
After the show was over.
No, I think we all got pretty sauced up that evening.
Yeah.
And it was pretty intense. But everybody that I had some friends who they were like, they listened to it because it was like, hey, check out my buddy's podcast.
Yeah.
I was on it, give them a listen, and they were like, oh my god, it was the stories were hilarious and we had a good time. So, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, we were talking about it on the way up here, and we were like, I was like, you remember we had McCaskill on? He's done our show? I was like, yeah, that was the night that you kind of went off the rails a little bit and stopped drinking. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that now, but I don't remember it. But but yeah, man, our show, like I said, it's everywhere you can find your show. I tell everybody it's just sophomoric. I mean, if you just like hanging out with guys and talking and know that we're 90% of the time just trying to make the other person laugh.
Yeah.
Because me and Josh have known each other pretty much our whole lives. And we even joked on the way down here that at one time when he started working a job when he was 16, if he wanted to put my address down for like tax purposes, he could have gotten away with it legally because he was there at my house all the time.
Sure.
So, but like Josh said, we've talked to some pretty famous people. And that's something that if you ever have the ambition to talk to some people out there, I learned that Twitter, all you have to do is just ask sometimes.
That's what I've been doing is so I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And so I've been like, I'm going to be going to a lot of shows this year. Is one of the things I was like, this year I'm going to some stand-up shows. So I'm just like sending messages to the people I'm going, because like a lot of times I'll be going up to Nashville or wherever and I'll be staying the night. So I'm like sending out these messages to these comedians I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Like, hey, would you want to sit down and and I haven't really gotten a response yet, but in my mind, I'm like, and I'm going into it with the expectation that I won't get a response.
Right.
But if you cast a big enough net,
Yeah.
somebody's going to be like, hey, why not?
Yeah, there's probably at least for the 7 or 8 people that have taken me up on it. Like we've interviewed Summer Sanders, a former Nickelodeon NBA show host. She was a gold medalist.
Yeah. Okay.
It was like, honestly, it was a selfish thing because when I was younger, she used to be on Figure It Out on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
The blonde haired chick that was really hot.
Yeah.
It was like one of those kid crushes. It's like,
Yes.
I'm going to send her a message. And lo and behold, she was like, sure. I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And, we actually got in touch with a guy in Tennessee that does Sirius XM. His name's Dr. Steve. So we had him on our show. A couple months later, I was like, hey, man, you want to come back on our show? And he's like, well, why don't you come on my show? And I was like, the one on Sirius XM? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh. So
Yeah.
for like 30 minutes, we had like a spot on Sirius XM where we were just talking about Andre the Giant's dick. And I mean,
It was great.
that was pretty
I had
much
fun.
It's like
The dick or the 30 minutes?
well, it was massive.
Which is probably as big as a normal human.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, he broke our hearts on that one. We thought it was like big around
Yeah.
as a coffee can, but none of that. He was like, no, it's probably a normal size of just his other organs that were enlarged.
Yeah.
Well, fuck you, Dr. Steve.
Yeah, really? You should have just lied to us.
Yeah. So
Don't ruin our dream.
Told us he had a big old wang.
Yeah, the Andre the Giant documentary had just come out talking about how he had giantism and all that. So that was our in. We were like, we have some questions about Andre. And he's like, well, just come on our show.
Yeah.
And it was so complimentary from him because after it was over, he's like, guys, if you could call in every week and do this, he's like, you made our show. We don't have to
Nice.
come up with any material.
That's
so at that point, we were like, we got to call in every week. So
Yeah.
we didn't get a chance to, and he's a busy man. But yeah, man, you never know what you might get just by asking.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like the pretty girl at the dance thing.
Yeah.
She's not dancing with anybody, not because, she don't want to. It's just no one's asked her.
Yep.
So sometimes you just have to ask. And, like I said, y'all are onto something big here. I know because, you've already started out with really great equipment, and I know you guys. So, well, I know McCaskill. I just met Josh today, and I mean McCaskill's hilarious. So, I mean, we've joked around a lot. So, you guys are onto something here. I think y'all are going to be a success.
I appreciate it, man. But yeah, I definitely go check out these guys, P3 Radio, and we'll do another plug before the end of the show, I'm sure. But I did make that mistake, I think, because you mentioned this earlier. I don't know if we were recording when you mentioned this, but someone was like, I was talking, man, my buddies Josh and Richard are going to come do the show, and what do they do? Like, they have a podcast, and they're like, what is it? And I was like, and at first I said it's a wrestling podcast, but then I was like, I don't think it's just that though. I was like, it's not really. I was like, they're both well versed in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
From a lot of standpoints, from doing it to working in the business to just following it as fans and all that. So, but I was like, I was on the show, and we did talk about it a little bit, but not
just
exclusively. Yeah.
I think we talked about the ShamWow guy getting his nose bit off by a hooker.
Dude, that was one of the best stories. Did you know this about the Vince?
Yeah.
Vince?
Yeah. I had heard the story. Yeah.
It's like, how do you pour that into a podcast? Like, theme.
Yeah.
It's like, they ask you, what's the show about? Well, what would you categorize getting your nose bit off by a hooker?
Yeah.
That says a lot about their show.
True crime. It's a true crime podcast. You probably pick up a lot of middle-aged white ladies.
That is a hotbed. There is money in true crime.
Absolutely.
You know that. So, well, I'm not going to rehash the story because this will be a perfect opportunity to say, go over to P3 Radio.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't remember exact episodes, like 70.
I think your name's on it. I think I said
77, 8, 78, something like that. And go listen to the ShamWow.
Yeah.
Bitten off nose by a hooker story. It's really good. But yeah, the true crime thing is I fall into it too, like with the shows, not heavily, but there's a podcast I listen to that's a true crime podcast, and the reason I like it is because it's from Wondery, which is like a big.
Yeah, they have a ton of true crime podcasts.
Well, but it's these two guys that I don't think they have any expertise in any kind of field at all, and sometimes they say stuff and I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't even make sense. But they're just like, well, I think, and then it's like just two guys talking about what they think about a thing, and you're like, okay. And they always do this thing where it's like, you think there's about to be like this curveball, but then it's just like, there's not.
Like they gave you the heater.
They're like, this guy killed his wife, and then but that's like at the beginning of the thing, and it's an hour thing, so you're like, he didn't really do it or something. And then later it's just like, oh, he just did it. Okay,
yeah.
But
he died in prison.
But for some reason I listened to the whole hour, and I'm like, I can't get enough of it.
Well, because you're waiting for the hook, right?
Like, they got me again,
and then they never give you the hook, and then they hooked you by making you wait for the hook. They actually double whammied you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
usually the music is real intense, setting the stage too.
Oh yeah.
Well, damn, maybe he did. Maybe he didn't do it.
Serial is the most downloaded podcast in like the history of podcasts, and there's a reason for it, right? Because that lady tells compelling stories. It's incredible. I was way late to that party, and once I listened to the first season, I was like, oh wow. And then they did the second season, and it was like a controversial subject. It was Bo Bergdahl. And that, if you're the left, you support him. If you're the right, he's a traitor effectively. It's a weird political dynamic thing.
Right.
Well, but I don't care at the end of the day, right? I'm mostly a centrist. And then on top of that, you literally get to hear interviews from Bo Bergdahl. And from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So you don't have to take their word for it as to what he said or didn't say. You can literally hear it from him. And she didn't interview him. It was hundreds of hours of interviews from another guy that she got the tapes from.
Right on.
And so he wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be on a podcast. It was like this dude said he was going to write a book about him. And so he was just trying to get information out. And the way she presented that podcast was brilliant. And then the third season of Serial, she just literally, apparently the courts in Cleveland will allow you to record anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so she just went into Cleveland courts and started recording she would sit down in random courtrooms until she found an interesting.
Dude, I bet you could hear some crazy shit doing that. Holy crap, man.
The B-side. People versus Greg Smith for speeding tickets. It's like, oh, this is not going to fill an hour.
Yeah.
I would listen to it somehow. But no, you're right. The music is always, like this one I listen to, it has this very, it's very derivative of the Unsolved Mysteries theme. So that's why I always think that they're about to hit me with this
oh yeah,
it's like almost a whodunit.
An alien.
But they always just give you all the shit up front, and then later I'm like, nothing happened.
Right.
Why am I still listening 10 episodes
What are you
later?
listening to so I don't have to?
It's called the Generation Y.
Oh, okay, good.
Podcast,
I don't listen to that.
but not like the letter Y, like why the question.
Yeah.
And something could be said also for listening to a podcast that's just terrible. And not terrible content, just it's so. And I think somebody that made this like a genre, and he was really good at it, and he was funny at doing it, was Norm Macdonald.
Oh my God!
His shows where he would come on and he would just ask these stupid questions.
The brilliance of that man.
Yeah,
I've said this off recording, and I'll make it on the record now. Norm Macdonald. Now this is bold. I'm saying it. Norm Macdonald, funniest living human.
He is hilarious.
You said living. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't ever narrow down because I love comedy. Like,
Have you heard his bit?
Yes.
Have you heard have you heard the bit about when he starts talking about Germany?
Go a little bit into it because
The whole setup is when he's like, if there's one country you should be afraid of, it's the country of Germany.
yeah.
And you're kind of like, okay, where are you going with this? He's like, and then he hits you with I don't know if you're history buffs, but Germany in the early 1900s waged war. Who did they pick as their opponent? The world. And it's like, then the whole, you go listen to it because it's great. It's on Netflix. But I just think that Norm is he's a true genius when it comes to
It's very Andy Kaufman-ish because he can sit in a horrible moment and
just sit
there.
I think his delivery throws people off.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of people, they're wanting that. We're in the age of instant gratification,
Yeah,
right?
oh, yeah.
Where get to the punchline. You need to be funny. Be funny. Be funny. And Norm, he'll just he'll sit and fuck around with you and draw it out. You know, he really bleeds the turnip.
He'll tell like an 8-minute joke.
And a lot of people, they get lost and they just, he wasn't really that funny. Well, you didn't really listen to it.
Dude, his show on Netflix was one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen in that style of show because it was so ludicrous all the way around. It was one of the most ludicrous talk shows you've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. It was great. And everyone who came on the show was like so
Confused.
excited. Well, they were happy to be there, though. They were like, I love Norm.
Everybody, you could tell everybody loved Norm, but they were like, what the fuck is going on here? Right?
Did you see the episode with Judge Judy?
Yes.
It's amazing.
Brilliant.
Then you're also kind of like, damn, I didn't know I liked Judge Judy that much. Like, she's so cool. Yeah.
I didn't know you could make me like that lady.
Yeah.
But
She's
Judge
kind of cool.
Judy now.
Right.
Well, I already had a crush on her. Let's be honest. I just didn't like her personality.
It's a whole fetish.
I didn't get cable when I was a kid. I had to jerk off to something, you know.
It was Vanna White at night and Judge Judy and Bob Barker in the day.
It was either Wapner or Judy.
It was a real boner killer when Judge Mills Lane came on. It's like, oh man.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
So,
how did we get here?
Yeah, right. No, but Norm, I think he's one of the funniest humans ever.
One of the best things I ever seen Norm Macdonald do was that Bob Saget roast.
Oh,
because everybody's sitting there going, "When's he going to make a joke?" And he's just basically just goes on, and you can feel the crowd get uncomfortable, and you're like, he's living in this moment.
What's great is Saget totally got it.
Yeah,
because he started doing that thing where he's like, "You remember that time we were?" And he would like name some random thing that didn't happen.
Yeah,
and Saget's like, "Oh yeah, of course." And he's like, "And then you looked at me and said," and it's like there's no punchline, and I thought it was amazing. And then he did that whole thing. He's like, "Look at those feathers and that beak."
Yeah,
and he's like, "He's for the birds," and you're just like, "Jesus Christ!" And like at that point, that was like that icebreaker, and everybody's kind of like, "Do we laugh right now? Or do we don't laugh? I don't know."
And it takes a special sadomasochist person to be able to sit in those moments, man.
Right.
You cannot have any shame.
But here's the thing: I saw a cool breakdown on YouTube. Nowadays, like there's a lot of these YouTube channels that are like commentary on other videos and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird like meta thing.
Yeah.
But some of them are good. And there was this video breakdown of Norm Macdonald, and it was talking about there's this common misconception. I think it's a misconception too that Norm Macdonald doesn't care if people think he's funny. And they were like, that's definitely not true. They're like, Norm Macdonald definitely wants to make you laugh. And it's not like he gets like bombing. He's a comedian.
Yeah.
But his goal is to make you laugh, and I think he does take it like kind of like, oh damn, I bombed, you know. Right. I think people think he's just like whatever happens, and that's not. It was a really cool breakdown of like how genuine that dude is, and like how like compassionate he really is.
Right.
But people get lost, like you said, they get lost, man. They just don't know how to deal with it sometimes, and he's like the embodiment of like, I don't know, like this. It's almost like cringe, but like secondhand embarrassment, even that kind of stuff. But he sits in it and like marinates, and he lets it fuel him. And then everything's like so well crafted. Those jokes he tells, like he'll be telling these like silly ass jokes, like
almost like poetry.
Yeah, but then he throws in these like, and he's really well read. And someone mentioned this, and I didn't pick up this on myself because I'm not smart enough for this, but he's like throwing in, he'll be telling these like bar room jokes. Guy walking down the street and, you know, and then he'll start naming people, but it's like Kafka characters.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Like he's like name dropping like characters from like Leo Tolstoy novels and shit, and it's like that's like some next level intellect, man.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a cool. I wish I had the name of the video, but if you can find it, it's cool. Talking about Norm and how he just.
And you have to know that the comedy world loves him. I mean, you know, the guy that runs the Comedy Store was his co-host on the show on Netflix. The Adam Egget guy that nobody knew who he was. It was like, who's this fucking guy with him? It's literally the guy that runs the Comedy Store since the late, you know, Pauly Shore's mom died, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say a
didn't know
little
that.
trivia. A lot of people don't know Comedy Store in L.A. Used to be run by Mitzi Shore, the mother of
Pauly Shore.
the great Pauly Shore.
Yeah, that's actually how he got his start.
Yeah.
And but no, man, you know, is there anything worse? And this is why I think a lot of comedians respect Norm, because, you know, like I said, that's the other thing. Wrestling and comedy for me, I go to sleep every night listening to a Pandora comedy channel.
Nice.
Like with headphones in my ear. I'm pretty sure I'm going to wake up. My wife's going to wake up one day and see me like hung basically by my headphones because I don't use wireless.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have that autoerotic asphyxiation thing that I do. But
Like the
that's
NSFW
totally
guy?
different
Whatever
topic.
makes you happy.
Yeah.
Man. We're not here to judge you.
So totally different topic. But yeah, I think the other comics, and just in real life myself, like I hate being around people that don't get that 90% of the time I'm going for a joke.
Sure.
You know, if I'm taking something seriously, no, but like most of the time, if I'm sitting here, like the whole time we've been talking, I've been trying to find an avenue to make a joke.
Sure.
And there's nothing worse than being around people that don't get that.
Dude,
and you bomb.
It almost it feels like for me anyway, it's getting progressively worse.
Yeah.
Because I don't have as many interactions as I get older. I stay at home way more. So most of my interactions are at work.
Yeah.
And in the workplace, especially in like a corporate job. Like, you know, there's a level, you got to play the game, you got to be professional. But sometimes I'm still like I'm just trying to riff on something and people are just like, what? And you're like, no, nothing. Like,
And there's nothing that I hate worse whenever, you know, you're trying to be that guy because you're trying to make work an enjoyable thing.
Yes.
You know, because you got to, or else it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And you run into that one guy that you put the joke on and you can see in his eyes, yeah, you're trying. Fuck you. You know?
yeah.
I always want to punch that guy in the throat.
Yeah, man.
You know, do you not like comedy? I bet your ass don't like ice cream, you sorry motherfucker. You
Killers
know?
of joy. Is
Right.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's like, but yeah, and anyone who has known me for any length of time, I hope knows that probably more than 90% of the time, it's probably literally like 98% of the time, I'm probably just making a joke or trying to make light of a situation. I mean, there's always a time to be serious, but sometimes I don't even know when that is. So,
Right.
you know, it just is what it is.
And, you know, we talked about wrestling before. You know, wrestlers have the darkest sense of humor. And, you know, what my wife does, you know, we don't want to talk about what she does, but she has the same sense of humor. So there are times where we've been together and we've talked about a situation and it'd be a sad-ass situation. And we could sit there and either cry about it or we could laugh about it. And sometimes we make jokes that we're like, man, we would be pulled into HR. Like, even our podcast. Like, I feel like if HR was to, that's the fun thing that we do sometimes on the show. We'll go, hey, if HR pulled us in right now and played this clip of us talking about this one-armed man, could we defend it?
Well, because I'm glad you said this because this
Yeah.
leads me, and I think I would love to hear both of your inputs on this.
Yeah.
People, I don't want to get fully back into this because we've already talked about it on one episode. But are you, just to throw it out there, are you familiar with the Ari Shaffir situation?
Yes.
With the Kobe Bryant
Yes.
thing and all that? After Kobe Bryant passed away, he tweeted out this thing, and it's what Ari does.
Yeah.
He tweeted out this thing about he's glad he's dead and yada yada yada. But that's just like I don't think it's funny personally, but it's just and I don't want to get back into it. But
Yeah.
he tweeted out this thing like glad he's dead. Lakers suck. Haha. This thing.
He was what was it? Not expelled, exonerated
Canceled.
or something for rape.
Yeah,
that was what he was saying. He was
Sure.
like he was given a pass on rape, and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these Hollywood people let him.
And, But he does that with like literally every
Yes.
famous person that dies. He puts that up.
Yeah, his
And-
fans literally, as soon as Kobe died, were like, hey, what are you going to say about Kobe?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just what Ari Shaffir does. And anyway, but the point I was going to make about that was you don't always have to agree with something or think something's funny
Right.
to kind of defend the things behind it. So in comedy, but I think in any situation, freedom of speech is important.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in the realm of comedy, that's where it starts to get like you have comedians turning on comedians now, and I think that sucks because like
Definitely.
every joke comes from that same birth. That comes from I'm saying something that I'm trying to make someone laugh with. Now, not every joke's going to be funny. Right. Dude, I've told a ton that people are just like, you just move on. Yeah. The shock stuff's not my personal favorite, but there is a market for it, and he is a comedian. But anyway, but that happens a lot with anything. Like people say, you can't make a joke about. I'm like, well, if it's funny, I think you can. Right? Yeah. Not every joke's going to be funny, but sometimes you can make jokes about stuff.
Yeah, and Daniel Sloss, I'm a big fan of his lately. I've picked, he's got 3 comedy specials, and in one of his specials, he states that just because it's a sad situation, laughter is not the opposite of sadness. Right? And so in a weird, sad situation, just because you make a joke doesn't mean you don't take the situation seriously. It just means you're trying to find some laughter in a shitty situation.
It's a response to it almost.
It's a coping mechanism more than it is anything else. So,
well, comedy literally exists because of tragedy. Like it's the reason it's here. Like it's the answer to that.
It's what battles tragedy almost. Yeah, it's almost like because happiness is the opposite of sadness, not laughter, and that's what a lot of people don't understand.
Right. And I think the biggest thing now is that people, I'm going to sound like the old man on his soapbox. When people were able to get these Facebook and Twitter pages where they could shout out whatever they thought, and they thought that their opinions mattered more than anyone else's. And at the same time, they don't understand that sometimes when people are posting stuff like this, it's a joke. And they think, now that I have a voice, and I'm Ray in Tennessee here, that I have a voice now that because people heard me and I have 30 followers, that I'm so quick to be offended if you don't A, listen to my opinion, or B, say something I don't like.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest problem is that people don't know how to just, if you don't like it, just keep scrolling.
Jesus, if only people would pick up on that particular thing, and I've talked about it here on one of our previous episodes about how I got out of Facebook for a little while because it was such just bullshit. Effectively, right? Everyone's a hypocrite. No matter what side you're on, you're taking your side. It's a weird ordeal, and so if you point out someone's hypocrisy, just trying to be like, hey, here's a flaw in your argument. And then they take it so personally. And they're like, well, and I got to literally within one day, I got called a libtard and a Nazi.
Snowflake.
And I got called both sides, right? Because that's how each side invalidates you when they're trying to take you out in a public setting like that. Is the left will call you a Nazi and the right will call you a snowflake libtard.
Right.
And like it's supposed to invalidate you somehow. I don't understand how that works.
I think we've stumbled on a great sketch here. Yeah. The Nazi snowflake. Like if Hitler had feelings, it's like what should you mean?
I gotta say this is one that does make me laugh a lot, and I don't know why. It's because it's not that funny, but it makes me laugh. Is OK Boomer.
Yeah,
oh, man.
Because people are calling people boomers that are like in their 30s. And like, what? But it's hilarious to me.
I walked into my 10-year-old daughter's room the other day, and she had a piece of paper that she wrote "OK Boomer" on, and I was like, "Who is that for?" And she's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "That better not be for me." I don't.
Okay, Boomer.
How do you feel if you're Boomer assassin?
Right? He's like, hey guys,
whoa. It's all kind of press, though, right?
Yeah. All press is good press.
What are you talking about?
After all that, so what do you guys think? Is there something out there you shouldn't joke about?
Man, here's the thing. I think that sometimes, and I didn't have a problem with what Ari did. But for me, I wouldn't have made that joke so soon. And here's the thing about what he did. When he found out that his daughter was on board, he took it down.
Sure.
So, he was like, oh, this has gotten way...
That's the thing that made this whole thing more tragic than the average celebrity death. Sure. Yeah. I don't ever get upset when celebrities die. They lived a great life compared to most people, right? In almost every situation. Why should we feel sorry for those people that got to live the best of what most people consider a life? And then they, yes, they died, and people are allowed to be sad about it. But also, I just personally don't get very sad. But when you find out that his daughter was on board, that's genuinely tragic.
Well, I didn't want to make it about just the Kobe Bryant thing. I was just in general thinking, like, is there? Because my opinion is, it's either and I'm talking about in comedy especially, it's either all okay or none of it is.
Right.
I do think that.
Me personally, I think that there's got to be some kind of, hey, maybe not right now.
Sure.
Because you remember we were old whenever September 11th happened, and for a long time, at least a year or two,
pretty much off limits. Yeah,
you don't do that.
Yep.
No jokes about that yet.
Sure.
And they've slowly eased into that.
Oh yeah, now there are hardcore jokes about 9/11.
But I don't necessarily think even as much time has passed since like Sandy Hook, I don't think a joke will ever be appropriate for that situation.
Yeah.
You know.
See, and I don't know, and you might be right. I don't know. My thing is more about not necessarily
which topic. Is
it's like you can't really distinguish because the line has to be drawn somewhere,
right?
And then if you do draw a line, that line starts moving.
Yeah,
depending on the situation.
And I think the general rule of thumb should probably be: you make any joke you want, and then people just as
let the market
decide. Right. I don't want to hear that joke, and then they don't go see the guy anymore.
Yeah, because if you say a joke and your career takes a hit, you're either gonna fix it and change what you're talking about, or you're just gonna kind of fizzle out into
comedy is basically a capitalist society, effectively, right? You know, if you have good jokes and people like you, they come to see you. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you're gonna say those offensive jokes. The thing is the outrage. The overt outrage is so silly, right? It's like if you don't like it, just don't go see it,
right?
Yeah. And so,
unless you're like literally harming someone,
right? Yeah.
If you're calling to action to like have someone harmed, or that's obviously you can't do that. But I don't know, man. I'm still kind of working it out myself. That's why I ask a lot of people.
I don't think the way that like you were just talking about, Josh, how it's almost like people on social media now, they almost like calling of the troops, go and cancel this man because he's, and then
grab your pitchforks and torches,
have a screenshot of where he said a girl was fat.
Yeah,
cancel the shit out of him, get him fired from his. That's kind of overboard.
We had a cancel situation the other day locally here where a guy left a review for a restaurant, and it was pretty bad. It was a rough review. He deserved to get some shit for it, but then like he got attacked basically from a number of people until he had to like get off, and they were demanding that he have his job taken away. And I was like, that's.
I think I don't know. I heard this secondhand, but I think something actually came of that.
Yeah, and that's sad.
Like it might have affected his job or something.
And I literally the day before it happened, I had listened to the Rogan podcast with Daryl Davis on it, and if anybody knows who that is, he's a black musician that over the last 25 years has convinced over 200 white supremacists to quit white supremacy.
Right.
Yeah.
And
he as a black man goes to like
he
rallies
goes to Klan rallies to like talk to people.
Yeah.
And so in my opinion, he's doing it right because he doesn't demand that they quit.
Right.
He just literally sits down with them and has conversations and points out, and not even in an asshole way like, hey, you're acting stupid. The way you think is ridiculous. Right? He's like, well, here, let me offer you some food for thought, and he'll do that, and he'll plant a seed in their head like, oh man, I might be wrong. But then they're so indoctrinated into what they do that they're like, I think you're wrong, bud. But all that does is sit in the back of their head like, oh, what if I am wrong? Yeah. And then he'll have another conversation. He'll come back and sit down with them again, and then come back and sit down with them again and invite them over to dinner. And he kills them with kindness, which nobody knows how to do anymore.
No.
Right.
That's a lost art.
And to double back into what you said, I'm like the direct opposite of Josh, and you can hear that on our show sometimes when we start talking. Mm-hmm. I kind of believe that there's no limits on what you can joke about. Like I'm the first one at a funeral home making jokes about like
that's my
favorite
grandmother.
Place to
make
my grandmother's right here, just passed away yesterday, and I'm making jokes. And a lot of time, and I do that to myself, but I also do that about fictitious stuff. I also do it about real life events. I'll be honest. The day Chris Benoit died, the wrestlers in the back, we were throwing out some doozies of jokes, and that was a terrible situation.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like there are limits. I just feel like more people should be more willing to just keep scrolling. If it doesn't, now here's where I think it does get in a sticky situation. If you are a manager and you're over people, and then you make jokes, or you make real life jokes saying something like, say, if there was this manager that came out and made a joke about black people, okay.
Yeah.
And he made it derogatory, and it made it look like he hates black people. Well, then you go back and you look at his record, and he's never promoted a black person. Well, then, that's a real life thing. Fire the dude. But if the guy makes a joke about Polish people, and it's just an off-the-wall Polish joke, he doesn't have anybody Polish that works for him, or he's, you don't dive into it. It's not like a real hate joke. It's just some joke.
There's plenty of them out there, too.
Yeah, I mean, a woman holds... Yeah, okay, anyways. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, if there's no real tie to the real world, and you're not talking about hurting somebody, why try to get the guy fired? If it's not affecting and this is something I've been struggling with everyday life, and I've gotten a lot better at it, and my anxiety and anger has went way down. If it doesn't affect me, just keep rolling.
Yeah.
There's that old saying, not my monkeys, not my zoo.
Yeah.
It's not my problem. If this woman's yelling at her kid in this aisle, as long as she's not beating him down with her fist, let her yell at him. It's not affecting my life. I don't care that she gets fired or whatever.
So my issue with the cancel culture, first of all, it's silly because a lot of times the people they're trying to cancel, they had never even heard of anyway. And they were never going to listen to anyway. They saw someone tweet about it, so now they're like, "Oh, now I'm mad
It's
about
mob mentality.
Yeah.
So, but the issue I have too is when they dox these people, and so now you're saying you don't like this person, and they said something hateful or violent or whatever, and now you're promoting violence against them.
Yeah.
You are the same.
Yeah, it's hypocrisy.
Actually, you're not the same. You're worse than they are.
Yeah.
For whatever you think they did.
It is always funny though when you see the mob eventually turn on individual people in the own mob.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, and I know this is, we don't do political, but I know a couple of years back, Kelly Osbourne, she was part of that whole, she was against Trump, and she was talking about him and everything. And, at the time, the media was all over him. And she made this stupid comment about, Mr. Trump, if you don't like illegal Mexican, or you don't like Mexicans, who's going to clean your toilets?
Oh, my gosh.
And it was like, all of a sudden, the mob turned their attention away from Trump and looked at her, and she's like, "No, that's not what I meant." But
you know what I meant.
Yeah, it's like
we're like, no, expound on this.
At
Please.
some point, if you're in that mob that is rallying with your pitchforks
all
and
it
torches,
takes is one person in the mob to think that what you're doing is also wrong, and then they all turn and face and take you out just as quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's an angry mob, and it doesn't take much to turn their attention to somebody else.
Well, it gets weird too because if you're even like, "Yeah, this Mexican guy," they're like, "Whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa,"
yeah.
and I'm like, "He's a Mexican guy," and they're like, "Why is that important?" I'm like, "Okay, what?"
Right.
So can I not be like, "I'm going to this Mexican restaurant"?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Look, it's a restaurant.
It gets a little silly.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a racist dickhead, but you can say there's this Mexican guy at work or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you say that? Call in.
I'm so baffled by the rules about that too.
Yeah.
And then you've got our grandparents when they used to say stuff around you, and there was this one episode, and I'm not going to throw Josh under the bus and say what he said because we edited it out. You made a statement that you had heard your family say all the time, and I was like, dude, I think that's pretty racist.
Are you talking about those fireworks that chase people?
No. No. We're talking about a yard. You were saying something about
what I call my kids.
Yeah, and I was like,
I didn't know that was a thing. I thought that was just for little kids.
I paused it. I said, Josh, I don't think you can say that, man. He's like, oh no, that's not racial. I was like, I bet you it is. So we Googled it, and sure enough, the first thing that comes up was racial slur. And I'm like,
but number 2 was the way I was applying.
Unruly children was number 2. So it's like, why did they make that word so similar? We couldn't come up with another. But I've done it
the
before too.
The two meanings are two
totally different things.
And I've done it before too because where we were raised. I mean, let's be honest.
Everybody definitely has. Yeah, no, yeah. I had an inappropriate uncle. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? He said some inappropriate things, and it
okay. I'm with you now, buddy. I'm with you.
Josh is about to pull out
his
doll.
uncle. Yeah. Wow.
Pull out the doll. Show me where he touched.
We just talked about he almost got touched by a man in a ditch in Westwood Gardens.
Wow.
So
how'd it go?
Was that your uncle?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, no.
Yeah, no.
I'm just making sure.
He was somebody's uncle.
He said inappropriate things.
Believe that.
He said inappropriate things. He didn't touch me inappropriately.
Okay,
That's a different thing.
He touched my heart inappropriately.
I'll tell some good stories.
I think
eventually.
anybody, and it's not just the American South, but I think especially if you grew up in the American South in the 80s and 90s, you had somebody in your family that was probably racist.
Oh, dude, your Uncle Craig used to crack me up with some of that shit.
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy.
So it's, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, people grew up in different times, and I think now we can.
Man, and I think we're in a much better place now than we were before. And it's not out of our generation completely, right? It's you still hear it every now and then.
Yeah.
But the generation behind us, my children, that's like a completely different thing. I don't even think they'd consider it anymore.
No, they don't.
It's just about completely gone. Unless you were in the most racist of households right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? The very, very few that still remain. I mean, it's just absolutely almost gone.
Sure.
And I think it's, obviously that's a huge positive. Everybody wants that except for the extremely racist people, right? But anybody who denies that there's some underlying racism in the generation before us, and our aunts and uncles and parents. You know what I mean? It just was. And then our grandparents, I mean, it was pretty aggressive back then.
Well, I heard an old man just like a few years ago, and I don't remember where we were at and what the context really was, but I overheard him. He wasn't talking to me, but I overheard him say, "This colored fella," and I was just like, "Holy crap!" I was like, "What?" And he wasn't saying it like in a hateful way.
It was just how he referred.
But it was just like, and I'm just like, did he just say that?
That literally happened to me 2 days ago at work.
Right
it was a dude. He was about 60 years old. He was one of the recycling guys taking something away. And I told him, he said, "Where is so-and-so, the guy that used to be doing the job?" And I said, no, you need to get with this guy. That's who you need to get with. You talking about that colored feller? And I just looked at him. I was like, his name's Richard.
Yeah.
Go talk to him.
Jeez, yeah. But it does hit you. And you're like, did you just say that? Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely remnants of it, but,
Oh, yeah. And to ignore it would say that, be a disservice too, right?
Sure.
Because I think if you don't acknowledge it, then I don't think we ever get better from it.
Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't going to just go over and call out a 75-year-old man. Like, he's at the end anyway. Probably a few days left.
Honestly, this man. Yeah. And if he's not doing the hard N-word, right? I mean, I think,
sure.
I mean, you can't apologize for him, but you also like, hey, man, we got to pick our battles here. Yeah. We're not punching 75-year-old men for saying colored. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's just not where we're at.
He's on his way out.
Yeah. No more birthdays left.
Yeah.
So
he's literally in months now, not years.
But I think the other side of that, the flip side of that coin is every group has their no words now, and they're starting to grow longer and longer.
There's going to be a lot of no words in the next 4 or 5 years.
And here's the one, and I forgive me if this is a slander or a slur, and it's not. Josh's asshole's getting tight over here. He's like, "What's he about to say?" Because we grew up in wrestling, and we had what was called midget wrestling.
Yeah.
And
oh no,
you can't
is
say
midget
that
not a word anymore.
You can't say that anymore.
There's
short Americans.
Well,
short Americans is what we call them on our show.
Somebody, the whole thing is like little people, and there's a comedian.
Brad Williams, I think.
No, well, he's a little person, but I'm saying there's a comedian's bit where they're like, little people's too general. Like kids are little people.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, what do you? And but yeah, definitely, I don't think you can say midget anymore.
No. I mean, and
I wonder why it didn't even seem that offensive to me.
Well, like I said, everybody has their own word. I'm gonna try not to go.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, everybody has their own word, and this is the thing. And you realize that we're living in this culture now where everybody has that word, and you have to be cautious. Like, so when my daughter was born, one of my wife's family members knew I loved wrestling, so got 2 onesies for my daughter. One was uniform, like what my wife would wear, and the other one was this one that said midget wrestling champion. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I was just immediately felt like, is this inappropriate? Like, should she wear this?
That's amazing.
So
that's an in-home only kind of garment. Yeah.
I'd roll those dice.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's go to Walmart, see what happens.
I mean, it does also speak volumes. It's like your word only matters if you're a large group of minority.
Yeah,
because think about Native Americans. There was nobody in this lifetime that's ever been fucked over more than the Native Americans, and we still have a team called the Redskins.
Yeah, that's pretty aggressive.
That's
pretty aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that sometimes. I'm just like, that's pretty.
Yeah, and when there was a big stink about it 4 or 5 years ago, and everybody's like, "No, that's fine." This is. I was like, "Is it fine?"
You're like, I don't think it's fine.
I don't. I mean, I'm not making them change it, but. Boy, it seems aggressive. You might want to change it.
Yeah.
Well, my big reservation about that is,
reservation.
Get it? You caught on to it. You got it immediately. Thank you, sir.
Man.
My thing with it is, like the Atlanta Braves, they're my team. We got rid of Chief Nakahoma a long time ago.
Terribly racist name.
Well, come on now. And
Chief Nakahoma.
I just put that all together. How have I never known?
So racist.
Chief Nakahoma.
Holy shit! Yeah.
But either way, we got rid of him years ago, and he wasn't even a major. He was just the mascot. But the Redskins, there's literally a brown Indian man on the helmet.
Oh yeah.
With
the feathers and all
that. But I mean, it's always been that way. Think about back when you were younger, Red Man Chew.
Yeah.
Red Man Chew.
And they still have that.
Listen, I think you should definitely name your team after a Native American thing. Like, there's a lot of pride in that, right?
Yeah. The Braves are a perfect example
Braves
of a well-done.
Yes. Our local high school, the Northside Indians, all of that protect the reservations. A little weird, but
get a announcer out there. Man, he got hit like he was drinking firewater. 2nd and 10. It's like, what?
I was trying to work a gambling joke in there.
Yeah. He really gambled on that one. But I mean, Louis C.K. said it best in one of his bits. Well, we can't talk about Louis anymore. Like,
yes, we can.
But, Louis C.K. said it best.
You look him in the eyes when you talk to
Yes.
him.
Louis C.K. said it best when he said, lock the door and look right at, when he said.
Do you mind?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But he said that, we even call them Indians. And it was our fuck up, but we still call them Indians.
Yes.
It's like they're not Indian; they're Native Americans. They're the natives, and we're
I think Native Americans not even a thing now. It's indigenous people.
Indigenous people.
Because they want to rename Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day.
That's a whole can of worms. There.
Yeah, Columbus is kind of a cunt. Everybody found out, and then they were like, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't have a day for that guy anymore." And they were like, "Well, what can we do in place of it? I don't know. Maybe we should celebrate the people that he destroyed."
Yeah,
effectively.
But I mean,
we'll talk more about that off air.
I'm
serious.
I think that's going to open up a new can of worms, because then you're going to go back and, like I said, it's that angry mob mentality where you're going to find out that a lot of those people from back in the day don't live up to the standards of today by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
None of them.
You can't even go back to the 70s.
Well, it's like how people you hear this a lot, and I'm not saying this is the wrong sentiment, because it could be the right one, but there's a flaw in it.
Right.
When they say like. No, like I've heard people say, well, the president shouldn't be rich. I'm like, well, every one of them has been.
Yeah.
In fact, if you were to take George Washington money and put it into today's economy, I guarantee you it would trump Trump's. You know what I mean? Like I guarantee you that he was probably the richest president in the history of presidents.
Yeah.
Like there's never been a not rich president.
Yeah. No, it just turns out that we look to our leaders as successful people.
And like I said, I'm not saying one way or the other, because I'm not going to get into that whole that whole thing. But it's just that flaw of thinking of like. Either the people back then were wrong or the people now are wrong. It's like, well, it's relative, and there's so many moving parts to things that people never consider that make for poor arguments, and it makes for maybe it looks like a good Facebook post or something, to say like, oh, I'm clearly a good person because I think this, and it's like, F this person for being terrible, and it's like, well, if you have any insight at all. Like you're the enemy, right? Well, it's not actually that way. Oh, you must be a Nazi, or you must be a
My bad. I literally when I got off Facebook for about 6 months after that happened, and then I got back on, and every time I think about commenting on one of those posts to like point out someone's I type it out for my own personal benefit, and then I delete it, and then I just move on. Right. I'm like, I type out my argument, know that I still can make an argument in case it ever comes to that, and then move on. I just don't even post it.
And I think the biggest thing too is the speed at which it's moving now. Like all of because it used to be in 100 years you don't know what's going to be offensive or not, and now it's like within. It seems like 6-7 years. I mean, just for case in point, like I said, we don't really talk about politics, but we are. The whole transgender thing. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, I don't care about what anybody wants to do, live your life. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to try to kill you. There's some things I don't understand. Sure. And I think that should be a valid point. You should be able to not understand things, not get things. It's just not for you. Yep. One of the hardest things to say is, I'm a straight white male, and, I just don't I don't identify with that. Sure. So I don't hate you. Do your thing. But the thing about it is like if you look at the culture that we're in now, 6 years ago there was a State Farm commercial that they just redid. Mm-hmm. And they redid it and they took out the now offensive line. The old State Farm commercial was this guy talking to his wife, talking to his agent on the phone. Mm-hmm. Oh, will you do that for me? I'm married. Does it matter? And his wife takes the phone and goes, who are you talking to? It's Jake from State Farm. What are you wearing, Jake, for State Farm? Khakis. Mm-hmm. She sounds hideous. Well, she's a dude, so that was the line. Well, she's a guy, so... And that whole thing, if you look at any
now
kind of...
you can't assume that
they remade the commercial because
They remade the commercial,
okay.
And I'm sure it had some connection to it, because now when they go, what are you wearing, Jake, from State Farm? You hear the phone go, khakis, and then it cuts to a guy in the office go, hey, did they ever ask you what you're wearing? Like, they don't show that anymore. It's totally different.
And it was a brilliant commercial, too.
Well, let's talk about how that is what we call a giant fucking waste of time and money.
Yeah.
To fix something that's not even a thing.
7 years old. It's a 7-year-old commercial.
You go ask every transgender person on the planet if that's offensive, and 4 might say yes.
Well, I can tell you why they did it. And this is in my own head. Anytime you see a post on Facebook, whether it be like, okay, for example, there's a transgender woman in wrestling. She was a male, now she's a female. Once again, since it's not a competitive sport, I'm okay with it. It's a production, but I can see where people have problems with it, and it's hard to understand. Not that they want to hate them, but there are people out there that do hate this female now or trans male. There are people that do. So, like, under the comments, it's always the clip of the guy going, "Well, she's a guy," so, and it has it, transcribed out at the bottom. So anything you see,
that's rude, right?
Yes.
To me, I get it. It's a funny joke the first time, but every time,
you'll see like 20 of them in a row.
And
it's like,
that to me is hateful, in my opinion. I just don't see the point in that. Like that dude,
I don't know.
Woman,
and you might not be wrong. My thing is, it's so hard. The reason that I had to stop taking like online so seriously is because there's no way for you to know intention online.
Yeah.
And it could be hateful. It could be them trying to make a joke. It could be trolling, whatever it is. So it's like, and I would make the joke. I think it's like, okay, you've seen it once. It might be funny the first time. But I don't know. I think people get too absorbed in that online world. Like, go out and talk to somebody. Just talk to people.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that bad out here, I promise.
Yeah, and it's the old Bill Hicks thing. You listen to the news and the wars are coming and the world is falling apart, and then you walk outside and the birds are chirping and you wave at your neighbor and nothing bad is happening. And and it's not to say that nothing bad is happening anywhere in the world. It's just not on the scale that you think it's happening, because everything we see now is negative for the most part, because it's a big echo chamber, right? So everybody cherry picks the things that are most likely to have interactions with them on. That's literally how the Facebook algorithms work, right? They literally bring you things that you're more likely to interact with, and it turns out that we as humans interact with those things that are most negative. Right. We try to speak out or do something against that thing, and so you're going to click on the thing that you hate more than you click on the thing that you like. And so their algorithm doesn't do it on purpose. They just bring you things you're more likely to click on.
I think it is on purpose, but I'm a crazy person.
Oh,
so.
yeah. I honestly don't think that they would do that on purpose. I think that just by sheer accident, you could make an algorithm that brings you things that you're more likely to interact with. And
well, the only reason I say that is because there's been clear-cut proof that they cherry pick stuff politically.
Oh, I think they definitely.
So it's like censor. When they say it's their algorithm,
no,
I mean, there's
I think they censor things in a cherry picked way, but I think the algorithm they developed to make money. Right, I think that was because the more you interact with something, the more that money they make is effectively how it works.
And we're solving the world's problems here, and I think the issue you said, just people go out and talk to each other. I think the flip side of that coin is more people have to be less offended and accepting the fact that I might be quote unquote ignorant to a topic.
Absolutely.
So if I'm talking to you,
and don't attack him if he doesn't know.
And also, I'm going to say this straight up: I'm never going to be politically correct.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to be. No. It's just not who I am. And if you take a few minutes to talk to me, I'm a nice person. I'm not going to do anything to purposely harm you. If I make an insensitive joke and you tell me like, hey, that made me a little uncomfortable, I won't do it again. Like, I'm aware of my surroundings, but I'm not going to just walk around and like try to be that, because I think, was it Carlin that said political correctness is just fascism disguised as politeness? I mean, it's just, that's exactly what it is.
And that's the thing, you don't want to, you come up to somebody and you go, say the 75-year-old man says colored people. Well, and like, say if you said that, and the guy, hey, I'm just talking here. Explain to me why that's wrong. Don't try to go after his job. If you could have the open and honest dialogue with people, I think it would, but you have to be able to say, hey, I'm probably going to say some stupid shit.
Sure. But I know I'm going to.
Be okay with it.
Guaranteed I am.
Be okay with it, not offended. Tell me, hey, some people might find that offensive, and then let's just move on with the topic. But that's the problem. I think when we get to a point where you have two sides of the coin, you have one side that's just waiting for the other person to stop talking, and then you have the guy that's talking. And they're both waiting on either you to say something and slip up and say something offensive, so now we can strip you of everything you love and care about.
Sure.
And if you don't, then now it's my turn to talk, and hopefully I don't say something.
It's this weird thing where people try to do that, try to make themselves like, look how morally superior I am to everyone, and you're like, to me, that's just the worst quality ever. Like, it's like, that doesn't really do anything. So anyway, to shift gears here though, I wanted to talk about the state of professional wrestling. Because I don't know too much about it, and I've heard recently, and I know you guys probably have the inside scoop on this. There's a new wrestling federation company. What do you call it?
AEW.
Okay,
on TNT.
Okay, so I wanted to check that out, but I'm one of those no cable people. So I'm like, I'd love, because I've heard people at work even just in passing talk about like, oh man, it's pretty cool. How do you guys feel about this thing? Is it legit? Is it?
I'm gonna be honest with you. If you're looking for stuff like when we were kids, that type of action, maybe 10-15 minutes of the show might be for you.
Okay,
but it's one of those situations. If we're just laying it all out, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, his son, who is embedded in that team, and his son Tony Khan is his name. He owns
great name for a wrestling promoter.
It is. Yeah.
He owns a soccer team or something in England.
A lot of stuff.
Money just flowing. Vince McMahon times 4.
Okay.
But what he did was he hired like pretty much a lot of his friends in wrestling, like a tag team called the Young Bucks. They run the tag team division and pretty much book it to however they see fit. A guy that got big in Japan named Kenny Omega. He's he's in charge of the women's division, which you could tell it's kind of to his liking. It's a little weird, a lot of Japanese bullshit going on, and for people like me who really enjoyed wrestling in the 1980s and 90s, and hell, I even enjoyed it a little bit in the 2000s, I found, myself very excited at first. We did a review show with a guy has a podcast called Shooting the Shiznit. He's out of St. Louis, I think. But, I was extremely excited at first. And then as we started going along with the reviews and stuff and us having to watch it every week, I found myself getting more and more pissed off about what they weren't doing. And the whole thing about it was, initially, he said, we are going to be a sports-oriented promotion. It's going to be just like, old school. Wrestling was wrestling. You judge our company based off of the wrestling. And it's the bait and switch. It's something completely different. You got a lot of gimmicky bullshit, a lot of stuff that literally 2% of the wrestling fandom in the entire world get it and like it.
Okay.
It's...
is it kind of too like insidery type stuff, or is it just...
It's an acquired taste.
Okay, I got
for the most part.
I got you.
But a lot of people, like my counterpart over here, he sees the flip side of it. He likes to look at the good stuff on it, and I think you really enjoy it, right?
I love it. I don't watch WWE as much as I used to now. Raw has been setting through that show has been just a train wreck for me.
Like a job.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you might have 10 minutes of wrestling in the first hour, and it's like every show opens with... I could write you a Monday Night Raw right now. I could sit down and write you segment by segment of what I would expect, and I'm usually not surprised.
See, I haven't watched since like 2000-ish.
Yeah.
Right around 2000, and I can remember being like a really big wrestling fan back in my early preteen through the teen years and that sort of thing. I can remember being excited to go to school and talk about it and everything else, and then it just got a little too over the toppy for me. You know what I mean? It was all a little too, and I guess a lot of people kind of grow out of it, right? That once you figure out, okay, well that's not real, and then you hang on for a little while because it's still fun and nostalgia and all that sort of thing. But I think a lot of people kind of lose it because of how over the top it got.
Do you think it got more over the top, or do you think
in the late 2000s it did?
Yeah.
And they had to pull it back a little bit because once you're the only game in town, like once WCW went out of business and ECW's out of business, now you are wrestling.
Right.
That was what WWE was. They were wrestling, and you have violence against women, you have porn stars, you have boobs, you have all. So they had to pull it back.
Kiss My Ass Club.
Yeah. So they had to pull it back just for sponsors. I mean, they were losing sponsors left and right, and that was the problem. But to get back to AEW. It comes on Wednesday nights. It's pretty much all I watch wrestling-wise. Okay. And, there are nights that they do have stinkers for shows, and there are good nights. But the thing you got to realize about this is, and this is looking at it on the positive side, this company's only been around 4 months.
Oh, wow, okay.
And,
so it's very new.
Yeah, I mean, and they actually started 2018 saying they were going to have a company. And by October, they landed a deal, the second biggest television deal for a wrestling company in the U.S. ever on TNT.
Okay.
So, I mean, in 4 months' time, they've came a long way. So I think judging them on the same scale as WWE, that's just not fair.
Sure.
They're going to have hiccups. With any startup company, you're going to make mistakes and go, well, that didn't work. I mean, they tried this thing with one guy that Josh didn't mention was Dusty Rhodes' son is one of the guys running the company.
Okay.
Cody Rhodes. And Dustin Rhodes is there too. So they're big helps in there, and it feels a lot like WCW. But one of the things they started was Cody Rhodes' wife was cutting people's hair, and the gimmick didn't make sense. It was just bullshit, just stupid. And they dropped
a witchcraft vibe to it.
Oh, I got you.
And they dropped it. They just dropped it. No explanation. They just dropped it, which is what they should have done.
Sure.
So there's going to be some
there's
going to be some growing pains. It's like, like politics with the elections and stuff. Yep. You're going to make promises like, "Hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that." But then when you get in the thick of it, you have to make decisions based on what's working and what's not. They said they were going to have rankings like UFC, and whoever's ranked number 1 gets the first shot at the belt, and then they have like battle royals and stuff because I don't think people are following the rankings like they should.
Oh, I gotcha.
So
they're just not interested in who's ranked where or whatever.
If anytime you have wrestling, and they say even in wrestling matches, they tell you do not plan out everything you're going to do, because I wrestled for 12 years, and the people that were back there planning out move for move from start to finish, you could hear a pin drop in the crowd because you're not listening to the crowd. You're not giving them what they want. So if you're planning it all out, you're planning it for you. You're not planning it for the crowd.
Sure.
So I think what they did was they had something planned, and they had to make adjustments. So I think if you watch it, they have a YouTube show called AEW Dark, so you could watch that. If you also, there's another new company out called NWA Power. Billy Corgan actually owns NWA from the Smashing Pumpkins.
Wow.
He actually
as long as he's not singing, I'll watch it.
Oh, he works that in too.
But they bought this. They bought this studio space, and they do a studio wrestling show just like the old like Memphis style NWA, and that's all they do. The wrestlers don't have theme music. They just walk out, and it's a studio. And they used to have Jim Cornette. Nice. He said some stuff that got him fired. Speaking of cancel culture.
Don't they all?
But you would like that one too if you like old school studio wrestling.
That's literally all I watch.
I love it. I would
NWA Power. That's it.
So, the first time, so me and Josh were Josh Briley here.
Yes.
Not I haven't known the other Josh here, my co-host, as long, but me and Josh, we have known each other for a long, long time, and I used to, he would come to my house and stay. I'd stay at his house a lot. And the first time I ever got to see a pay-per-view was at his house. His mom ordered a pay-per-view for us. And it was one of the WrestleManias, and I don't remember which one exactly.
7.
Yeah, okay. WrestleMania 7. And that would have been
1991.
91, yeah. And I remember thinking, like, so we would have been, what, 9 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, somewhere in there. And I remember thinking, like, wait, what? You pay. And I didn't understand pay-per-view at all. Yeah. It was like, we're going to have to watch WrestleMania. And I was just blown away. And so excited, dude. And I remember sitting there watching that show. And we also, this is random, and I'm you ever like think you remember something and you're like, am I remembering this right? I think there was like a Guns N' Roses concert that your mom ordered for us.
Yes.
And it like went off the rails because it was like a live show, and it's like
Guns N' Roses invade Paris.
Yes.
Should you let him in?
Soundgarden opened.
Yes. And
holy shit, that's a good show.
So, but it was like a pay-per-view thing, and we're like probably around the same age,
about 10 years old.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't know if I'm remembering this part right, but Axl Rose had this shirt that said, "I am a lesbian" or something like that.
Yeah.
And we were like, "What's a lesbian?"
My dad tried to not explain it to us.
Yeah, we're like, "No, seriously." We kept coming back to it. We're like, "But lesbian though, what is that?" And it was just like,
everybody's getting dictionaries out. Like, what's this?
My dad got hot at us. That's all he's want to do, just watch them curse and do shit like that.
Yeah.
He was getting mad at my mom for that. I remember that.
I feel like you should let him in on your mom's pay-per-view budget.
We had the black box.
I was gonna.
oh yeah, that's what it was.
I was plugged in.
I was gonna say. In an unrelated note, have y'all ever known anybody that had a black box when you were growing up?
So we had one, but it was way later.
Right.
And I don't know if you could get pay-per-views at that point when we got one. It was just like the HBOs and the Spice Channel.
That was the greatest thing ever.
And they would like run a spike every now and then and ruin everybody's black box.
And I think
damn it.
And I think at some point the Spice Channel was channel 69.
It was.
Yeah. So it was like, okay.
I think the thing that kids will never have today that we had. That I mean, they have porn at their fingertips. I mean, literally right there, everything, anything.
Yep.
It's going to corrupt them. There's going to be more people into worse things than scat, if you can think about that.
Rule 34, man.
Yeah, I mean, so you're going to have that, but the thing that they're missing out on, if you've never set up with your best friend at 12 o'clock and watched scrambled porn.
Oh, dude. And it wasn't even like porn even. It was just like
every now and then
Skinamax,
you get,
but-
yeah.
You're like, I see a nipple.
Yeah.
See a nipple.
Was I mean, changing gears here, was y'all blown away by the first actual porn you saw? Not the softcore stuff.
No, I was a bit concerned. Actually.
Yeah, I was way too
I was
young.
like, man, that guy has a much bigger dick. I don't know what's going on around
So,
here.
Maybe I'll grow into mine.
so for those listening, I think we're all like of similar age. I think
Yeah.
you're probably you might be the youngest.
I'm 34.
Yeah, I'm 36.
Okay, so we're all about still in the same age range here, but for us to find porn, it was like an old VHS tape.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like,
Mostly magazines most of the time because there were an abundance of magazines.
Yeah.
If you knew, like, I didn't even have a dad, but all of my friends had dads, and they almost all had a magazine or two here or there.
I had
Some
a dad,
had
he just
stacks.
wasn't there. He was somewhere else.
Yeah, well, you know.
Thanks for bringing that up. But,
So if we're getting,
Samesies.
I've got a great story. Me and Josh have a great first like real porn story. Okay, so when he was younger, he did have the black box, and we did have those videos that he recorded.
My mixtapes.
His boner jams of 96.
Boner Jam 96, yeah.
Or 95, whatever it was.
Now look who's whacking.
Yep.
Look who's whacking
now.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, you'd have to explain it if somebody saw it. Well, that's a movie about mafia.
I would
That's
always
being
disguise it
whacked.
with some kind of wrestling theme that wasn't real,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
only I knew it was real.
Oh, yeah.
That's what their wrestling podcast is really about. But it's
Yeah.
been subterfuge this whole time. It's actually just a porn podcast.
You know, that carried on later when I was older and married and like trying to burn this is back when you burn DVDs.
Yep.
I got married really early, but I still wanted to watch porn, so I'd hide it by like writing stuff on it, like SummerSlam 32. It's like they don't even number them like
She'll
that.
never watch
It was
that.
actually Summer Gets Slammed.
Yeah.
Part 2.
So Josh had recorded all of these, and it was always fun to watch them because you could tell when he heard like a squirrel outside or something that made a noise, so he'd flip the channel. So it's like you're sitting there and you've borrowed the tape and you're, taking care of business, and all of a sudden Gunsmoke's on your TV or something, and you're
What's
like,
Hoss doing now?
yeah,
Or Bonanza, whatever.
yeah. It's like the Weather Channel. Oh, it was 78 degrees this night. That's wonderful. Can we get back to the girl?
You're like, you're midway. You're like, what's going on here?
But it was never hardcore. Like it didn't show any like insertion.
Right,
it didn't
right.
show any like it would show camera angles where you'd see the girl's head bobbing and the guy held his head back going, oh, or something like that. But you never had like the insertion point. So that was always one of those things. We just know what's going on. So cut to a couple years later. That was probably 96, 95.
I'd say 95.
95. My aunt was in an abusive relationship, and I won't say which one, but she was in an abusive relationship, and it was so bad that my other aunts and uncles went up there and just moved her out while the guy was gone, and moved her all of her stuff to our house. Well, in the process of grabbing things, they just grabbed everything that she could own, like entertainment center, all the videos that were in entertainment center, all the furniture, everything that was hers came to our front porch. So one day we got bored.
That's
so
the key.
Yeah.
Came to the front porch.
Yes. So
Not in the shed. It was out in the open.
that was our grounds. That was our starting point of the day. We'd sit there and talk. We'd hang out. Everybody in my little area right there in my neighborhood came and hung out on our porch at some point or another. That was just what we did. So we got bored, and what do kids do when they get bored? They rifle through their older people's shit. If you have a kid right now and you're not home, they have found your dildos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are you listening to me, Dad? They have found your... No.
Your flashlight's in the garbage now.
Yeah. I mean, and they've probably done stuff to them. So
Can
don't...
confirm we found a friend of mine's mother's
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
No names.
Right.
Stuff. We
But
didn't
you
know.
know who you are.
We're like, Silver Bullet?
Yeah. They must have these for werewolves.
What is this, a massager?
I had a girl sneak one of them in on me one time.
Oh, Jesus.
Dude. And I wasn't into that freaky shit yet, dude. I was
Yes.
like, whoa.
After
what's
that,
going
he
on
was.
here?
Yeah, I wasn't into it yet, but just as soon as I left, I knew what I liked.
Oh, man.
Opened my eyes to a brand new horizon.
Oh, new world.
The Joshes
Man,
just
that
broke
was-
out in song.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
You'd think we would rehearse that shit before.
Yeah. So we were sitting there talking, and we were rifling through the shit, and we find, best NBA dunks ever. These are like actually like bought from the store VHSs.
Like they had the labels.
Yes, they're not like written on. They're the actual printed labels. So we're sitting there and we're looking through all these movies, and it's like sports bloopers, and then there's one called Woman Times 4. Woman Times 4, and we're like, there was some exercise videos in there too. So we're like,
because it was like 8-minute abs and shit in there too.
So we're like, and the whole time we're finding these, we're like, I bet this is porn. Let's take them all and watch them and see what they are. And a lot of them were just like exercise movies. Well, we take this porn out, or what we thought was a porn. We pop it in. Not only is it our first porn that we saw insertion.
Is it a homemade porn?
No, God, no. I was scarred for life. I'm now doing things I'm not proud of for money.
Yeah.
No. But it was, and we found it actually on like X videos or something. It's still out there. Somebody's digitized it.
Oh boy.
It was one of the most like, if that would have been our only reference to sex,
like our template,
we would have been fucked up.
Yeah.
Because it was like girl on girl stuff. And it was guy on girl stuff, but it was like the main majority of it was like anal beads and some really out there sick shit.
I was like, do you have to use those all the time?
It's like
some next level.
I don't understand why they got Thousand Island dressing. I don't. Is it always $1,000? Or can we use blue cheese in a pinch?
Yeah.
I mean,
but you think, this is how sex goes. Yeah.
Yes.
I like ranch better. If we're being honest.
No celery though. Fuck that.
But I mean, I think all of us at the same time, like this was like our becoming a man moment. We're watching this, and I mean, looking back on it now, we were all just quiet because we were like, oh my God, here it is in front of us. But we were so confused. We didn't know what was going on.
That's a thing you don't get anymore, I bet, is group watching porn.
No.
Like, because that, just thinking back on that, everybody's like, what the fuck were y'all doing?
There were 5 of us, though, because it was all of our first time.
But I don't know any dude our age that didn't watch porn at least a couple times with a group of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, oh,
and
man.
the way that, like you were talking about, like the way you found porn back then was like almost traumatizing. It was like, I'm sure there's a bit about this. There has to be a bit about this. But, like, I remember this randomly when I was really young, like 6, 7 years old. My uncle, who lived in my grandparents' old house, it was a house in Bemis. Once again, no names to protect the innocent. But I don't know if he had like this stash that he didn't keep in the house, but it was like on the porch under this, like there was like this old like nightstand or something back out there, and he had like hid it under. And we like randomly, as kids, you're curious. You're like, what's in this bag? And it was like old like Hustlers and like, so this isn't like Playboy. This is like Hustler.
Hustler was like next level.
And Penthouse and all this. So we find it, and so that's like one of the first times I ever saw like a porn of any kind, like a porn mag.
Yeah.
And I was like 6 years old, and it's like on a porch in Bemis. Like it just doesn't sound. None of this is good. It's like the most traumatizing.
And if you think that's bad, now they can all access it at will.
Yeah.
And any depravity you ever could possibly think of, right? Because everything's on the internet, and there's literally no stopping it. I mean, there's just no way to completely stop kids
and I
from
didn't get
accessing
it. I was like so young, but I knew that I wanted to see it again.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're still talking the era of like, ew, girls are gross.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that thing?
I remember being so blown away by seeing a vagina for the first time.
It's,
like, because even as a kid, I don't know why I thought this. I just thought everything was done like to girls' butts. Like, but
Richard got used to his cousin saying, "You was a butthole, baby."
And I remember we had a friend named Justin that lived down the street. And for some reason, one day, one of our other friends, either Chris or Josh or somebody, found out that Justin's dad kept a stack.
Toe. It was Toe.
Okay. So found out that Justin's dad kept a stack of porn magazines about 3 feet high in the bathroom. So when we discovered that, we kind of started stealing them.
So like, how many can you steal before they notice?
The stack gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
And that was the thing. Well, Justin would actually give them to us too. He's like, go in there and get one. So we'd go get one and bring it home and everything. But I remember we used to go over there all the time. No one ever said anything. We never got in trouble for that. And we would like trade them out, like, oh, you can have this one.
Yeah,
it's like,
sticky pages and shit.
But that was the first time I'd ever seen, a girl like down there. Everything had been like, and I remember being so confused at Chris's house and just looking at it. But that brings me to the other questions, because we had to hide these things. How did you guys hide your porn? Were you more of a in plain sight, or was you like, did you lock it up? Because here's how I did it. And I think one time they found it. I had it in a duffel bag. And I took the handles of the duffel bag and turned it around and put a lock on it. If that doesn't say, "Hey, there's porn in this bag."
So I had this closet that was like, it had like a upper shelf, but then like to the right there was like a taller, like hidden little shelf, kind of. And I had this old duffel bag with like comic books and stuff in it, and I put the porn mags under the comic books. I never got caught either.
Huh? Yeah. We actually hid some under Chris's crawl space one time. Like, they were there under the crawl space of his house.
Yeah.
I don't remember
I had a buddy that hid it underneath his mattress, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
That's the most obvious place you could hide your porn.
I was an in plain sight guy.
Yeah.
I had a stack of magazines to the left of my toilet, and most of them were wrestling magazines, Metal Edge, and shit like that.
Yeah.
Video game
And
mags
I had
Hit Parader.
I had maybe like 6 porns that we had collectively took out of the mountain that our buddy had. And I just randomly put them about 3/4 of my stack of magazines down and just stuffed them right in there.
Yeah.
And I thought I was just smooth as a baby's ass. You know, nobody ever said anything. And about a year later, why you got all them porns in the bathroom?
Well, you know why.
Those are daddy's.
Oh, no, I couldn't explain what Dad wasn't looking at those, I promise you.
But yeah, I mean, I just, like I said, that was the worst place to actually hide it. It was just in a duffel bag with a lock on it.
I like that you had a lock on that.
Yeah, it was like a not a padlock, but it was like a combination lock in my locker in 6th grade. It's like, I'm not using this for this anymore. Might as well put it. And here's the thing: you could still get to the zipper,
But
it didn't stop anything.
Here's my question. Well, how do you explain whenever you're taking a duffel bag with a lock on it into the bathroom? Whenever you get caught doing that,
You just jerk it in your bedroom.
Yeah, this is just my. Well, no, I would have, like, because we grew up in such a small house, if I wanted to look at something like that, you'd have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
But what I would do is I wouldn't take the duffel bag. I'd unzip I'd put it under my shirt and tuck it in my shorts or something, and that was how I'd walk in. So and it wasn't very, it was very noticeable. You have this big magazine sticking out of your
Everybody's
shirt.
like, all right, Richard's going to jerk off again.
Yep.
It's like when you have a teenage boy and he takes long showers. You know exactly what he's doing in there, right? You're not ignorant.
You're experiencing that right now, huh?
Yeah, he's got some skin issues, so he doesn't take long showers anymore. But I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
It's an amazing discovery when you're that young and you're like, it just happens and you're like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
you think you got like some kind of medical condition?
Yeah.
Fuck. Does it do this all the time? Well, lightheaded.
And once you start, man, it does. It's an aggressive ramp up.
Yeah.
That is a perfect way to describe
It's almost like a, you know how crackheads chasing that first eye or whatever?
Yeah.
That's exactly
Maybe that's a
Man,
bad
there was one
example.
summer I couldn't even put on pants. It was so
first
bad.
stroke.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, though, I look back to and I think about how like no one ever had like the talk with me.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's like common.
Yeah.
I never had it either.
You know what I mean?
I had
I think
a
that's kind of,
hilarious
I think it's pretty common for it to not to be a thing or to be like
Especially in the South.
a really bad version of it.
Yeah.
So like we were just out there fucking literally fueled by like hormones, wanting to hump everything.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we'd hump a couch. It didn't matter what it was. Like, just hump stuff.
And then
you're like trying to figure it out, and then it's like you need somebody to be like, look, man, you can't hump anything. we get it, you know, but it's just there was never that like this is how it works.
And
know?
even our health classes.
Oh,
did you have
terrible.
teen living when you were growing up? So even with the teen living classes, they were so like I remember they would come around. They'd be like, "Here's a picture of a woman that had syphilis in her eye. Oh, she just rubbed it." And everybody's like, "Yeah, she just rubbed it in her eye. We know what happened. We've seen enough porn movies." And then here's some Orange Julius. It's like, wait, these two things aren't. And now we're gonna sew a teddy bear. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
It's like watching the first porn over again. But dude, I had a hilarious talk. I was raised by a single mom, so I remember like 6th, 7th grade. I'd finally, I'd gotten a little girlfriend, and I dated her for like a month or something, and we're coming back from Toys R Us, and I just bought a WWF monster ring. It was like the big rings it was the ones they had for LJN figures, the first ones from the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
They re-released it, so I had bought this, and I thought, oh man, this is awesome. I've got the old LJN ring. This is awesome. And we're riding back, and my mom goes, "So I know you have a girlfriend now. I need to talk to you about some things." And now, when you hear that, you immediately go, oh fuck.
Yeah, your stomach just drops.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the afternoon after you get that talk from where they separate the boys and the girls in the school, and then they show the girls a horror story about what's about to happen to them, and the guys, they're like, "You're gonna grow hair," and and your parents find out about it, so they want to talk to you about what. She's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. We'll just ignore it. Mm-hmm. So she continues. She's like, I know you got a girlfriend now. There are things that can happen with pregnancy and stuff. And I'm like, oh, Mom, I don't want to. She's like, no, you need to hear this. And she's like, and you know what to do if the moment ever comes up that you need to, fulfill those urges. And for some reason, I'm just wanting this to stop.
Of course.
And this is one of those repressed memories. And I look at her and I go, yeah, call you. And she's like... She laughs. She's like, "Oh, this little nerd's never gonna have sex. You're gonna call your mom before?" Like, she wanted to punch me.
Mom, what's happening?
Yeah, it's big down there. I don't know.
Mom, I don't know how to put the condom on. Can you come help me?
Well, she was getting at the fact that and she actually told me, she was like, "No, and
use
my mom,
condom, idiot."
She didn't even say that. She used Snoop Dogg reference, like, use a rubber. Like, I was like, oh god, I just bought a wrestling ring. But
I think that's like
that's a dope story from your mom.
I think that's a Southern mom thing though, because like a rubber, that's like a thing that my mom would say. I think,
but like
probably not now.
Your mom, you probably got a much better talk than most people. Most people are like, all right, people have sex and then fucking don't do it.
That was the only one we got. That was the only one I got.
Yeah.
After that, I think she just given up.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, things have gotten so progressive. They're like, all right, and they have a clit.
Yeah,
and this is what you're gonna want to do with it.
You want to put the silver bullet here for 7 minutes.
If you would have tried to explain a clit to me when I was 12 or 13, I'd have been like,
no.
What?
I was so bad.
I was still into like, man, look, I was like a bedwetter, straight up. That was a thing. And I was into the Power Rangers till I was like 12 or 13. Right. Like, I wasn't slamming.
You were slamming poon back then.
It just wasn't happening,
Yeah. But it was just an amazing thing to have a girl talk or kiss. Like, we might kiss a girl. It was so innocent back then,
And you were watching hardcore porn and then being like, man, if I could just kiss a girl.
It's a gateway.
Kiss her on the pussy.
Yeah. Josh was a little advanced.
Oh, my goodness.
But I remember, and I like I said, not to get too personal here, I guess, whatever, but I remember I don't have a long, impressive resume with girls.
No, me
I don't.
neither.
I started dating my wife in high school. And we've been together ever since. We've been married for going on almost 15 years now.
Congratulations.
So
besides that Puerto Rican stripper, you've got one more, right?
Well, yeah. No, it was there was this girl I was dating in high school, and I was so bad at it. Like you said, I didn't know what any of the equipment is. I just thought, well, if I want to go in, surely the only thing she wants is just violent, physical, forceful, big. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3". You look at my hands. You think any woman wants that? Like the feeling of childbirth, like over and over. Like, I was so bad. I think she dumped me just because of that. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
and she dumped you rightly.
Yeah. Right? Yes.
But it's weird out there. Like I don't know, and I don't know what parents are doing these days. Talk to your kids or whatever.
Yeah,
I refuse.
It was really
no. I'm pretty open and honest.
Man, it was a fucking nightmare sometimes. Because you're like, it's hard to navigate some of that shit, man. You get and as awkward as it can be, you needed someone to be like, look, man, you can't hump everything.
Yeah,
like you're gonna want to real bad, but you can't do it. You gotta show some control.
I think if we're all honest, there has been something embarrassingly that we've humped at some point or another. Even if we didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Josh is over here like, jeez, I don't even talk about it.
One thing, hell.
It was several things.
Yeah. Explain getting it stuck in a Gatorade bottle. Explain it. There's no explanation.
The fire department has to come in. It's just embarrassing all the way around.
Oh, my goodness.
At least it was a 32 ounce, right?
Yeah. Woo!
Oh man,
our boys getting it.
The wide mouth,
literally, and I don't know how we got here, but literally, you could look at any crevice as a kid, like a couch cushion crevice, the in between your mattress and box spring.
Listen, I'm gonna go and tell a friend's story. The first time he smoked weed, he got so high, and then for whatever reason, some people become aroused when they smoke weed, and he saw a leather couch cushion. I mean, he's a full grown teenager, and just went to town. To completion.
Wow.
I know a leather couch. feels like there'd be some abrasion, some
chafing or something.
I heard a story one time when about when I was younger about somebody using like grapefruits or oranges, hollowing it out and using the orange.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah,
that guy Booger, he did a basketball. Remember, they showed us where the basketball was.
How do you fuck a basketball?
I don't know, but it had a hole in it.
I'll
like
show you
that.
later.
Oh, okay. Thanks, guy. I appreciate it.
we'll make a video. It'll be cool.
You don't know how to do that?
Yeah. Well, like I have a buddy that's in the Marines, or he was in the Marines, and he said that they used to take Ziploc bags, fill them with hot water, and put duct tape around them.
Oh, geez.
And that was how they made their own little.
Like put them in a
toys.
U shape.
No, they would take 2 bags, fill them with warm water, put them together, some tape around them.
I'm definitely not going to try that later.
Yeah. It is funny when you do hear
size
things.
bag, please?
Yeah. Are those quart size or
how much water? We're halfway full.
Is there an optimal temperature we're going for?
I mean, there is
Not
no getting
scalding,
around
but,
when somebody sees you fucking a Ziploc bag. Like, what are you doing?
And look, here's the
Testing.
thing: if you catch like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old fucking a couch,
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, buddy. Hey, but if it's like a 38-year-old man,
Yeah.
You just let him do his thing.
He
That's
needs
a whole-
a check.
That's somebody you need to demand
get
that
a
gets
check.
fired.
that's a whole new, that's a restraining order.
There is no sexual exploration when you're
Yeah.
36.
Don't you ever come near this couch again?
Yeah. But I mean, I thought that was so ingenious about hearing people like talk about like inventive ways. Like I never thought anything about that.
Fleshlight, what?
Like,
Well, it's weird because it gets weird because people don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
But when you realize like literally every dude has done it.
Yeah.
And they don't, even if they don't admit it. If you're a guy out there who says you've never like banged your pillow or whatever it is, you're lying. Like
Yeah.
you're just lying.
Yeah.
I mean, it just
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't ever remember banging my pillow, but I was like a dry guy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
just going in raw.
Yeah, I mean, I never got the lotion thing. It was too
No.
much of a cleanup mess.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And then, like, I heard people were like, damn, lotion. I was like,
Or people were like Vaseline. Like, that's a whole new level, man.
I think when I was
You gotta
younger,
get
and I
degreaser
heard
in
the
there.
orange story, I did try the orange thing. And now I can't even drink. Now I can't even drink orange juice without getting a boner.
can't
It's
look at
really
it the same
weird. It's really weird at breakfast. You know.
I'm just trying to get my vitamin C.
Yeah.
mimosas do a really crazy thing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got the whole thing with like. I mean, I'm not down on anybody. Do your thing, if
Right.
You know.
If you want to fuck melons, fuck
Yeah,
melons.
but I just like to me it was like
That's
too
a
much of
victimless crime.
too much
Yeah.
of a setup. It was too much setup.
I
for
mean,
like,
who doesn't benefit from you fucking melons? The
Yeah.
farmers.
Yeah.
You got agriculture you're back in. I mean,
The
that's
Especially-
grocery store.
Yeah.
You know, everybody.
wins.
especially if you buy locally.
I go to the farmer's market. I support local business.
Josh is just over there at the farmers market going,
He wants to fuck one of these.
You're like-
Which one would you fuck?
Now, could you
Over there
microwave one of
thumping
these
it.
for a few minutes, or how do you do it?
over there thumping it like, ooh, that sounds good.
That was real mushy on the inside. You hear that?
We've really gone off the rails here. I like it.
Sorry.
No, that's where we want to go is off the rails.
Now you're talking about your mom. Here's the link. Don't listen to that one.
Yeah,
It'll give you a
Do not
virus.
Listen to the Richard and Josh episode.
We've told our parents that. Don't let it.
Yeah.
It'll give you a virus. You go to that.
That was the most scary thing. My mom's like, well, because I say a lot of curse words. My mom never heard me curse.
Yeah.
And we have a running joke about how you want to tell it about your dad, about what you saw.
I mean, I guess it's
Real
fitting
quick.
or it's hard to fit, right?
Yeah. So when we had this long episode where we talked about it, but Josh, what you want to set it up?
Well, it started off, you know, the how it all this whole bit started was, I said pretty much what my dad did at nighttime. You know, my dad he's an outside pisser. You know, he likes to go outside and just let it
Piss
roll.
off the porch.
You know, I think every guy went through that phase before he never came out of it. But he said he would just come out there and lay it on the rail and just piss away.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got hung up on the lay it on
Well,
the
no,
rail.
no. Well, you were talking about you were younger in the tub.
We got into that after
yeah.
that, but he was laying it on the rail, and then we started making jokes about splinters and this and that.
Sure.
And I told him about the one and only time that it was almost like a post-traumatic type thing. But you know, you remember how small my house was growing up.
Oh yeah, for
You know,
sure.
one of those. It's a shotgun house, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, we got one bathroom, and that bathroom, the toilet literally had a mirrored medicine cabinet sitting on top of it.
Yep.
And so one day I'm in there. I'm probably 7, 8 years old, something like that. And I'm taking a bath. My dad, it's morning time, cold as shit outside. He didn't want to go outside to piss. He's like, well, goddamn, I got to come in there and piss. So I just, okay. I cover up everything, and he comes and pisses, and I'm, 7 in there playing with my G.I. Joes or whatever, just trying to get through it. And I look over at the mirror. I didn't mean to, but it was, how something just draws your attention.
Yeah.
It was literally like a fucking Coke can. Like even in porn, I have not seen something like this.
Yeah.
And I'm in the bathtub, I'm looking down, I'm like, well, that's not relatable at all. It just blew my fucking mind, And I went to school that day, and how lunchtime during school or whatever, everybody's talking about whatever, and I saw my dad's dick when I was in the bathroom today. And they're like, so? Who cares? I was like, no, you don't understand. I held up the milk carton. And I'm like, it was at least like that. It blew everybody's fucking mind at the table.
Dad's got a huge dick.
Oh, my God. And from us telling that story, or me telling the story, literally, it has been a year and a half of nonstop dick jokes.
Anytime we talk about his dad, we're like, what's your dad and his dick doing today?
How they doing?
We were working on my truck before I came over here, and I just got in the truck, and we were just making jokes for each other. I said, we had 2 stools out there. One he was standing on, one he had his dick laying on.
I was like, was his dick holding the flashlight?
So I remember one time I was staying at your house, and it was like middle of the night. Your dad got up to go take a piss.
Yeah.
In the very bathroom you're talking about. And he pissed for like 8 minutes. And I'm not, like, it was so insane that it was like, it was just like a steady stream. And then it did the thing where it was like done. And then it was like cranked right back up. And it was like, and I remember me and you were like trying, and we're like, and then finally we just die laughing or whatever. And he's like, oh, shut up in there.
What you didn't understand then was his dad's dick so big,
he
started that piss on Tuesday. And it just took a long time, like airmail, snail mail. It just took a long time to get there.
But yeah, I don't know why. That's like a random memory that sticks with me. Is like Josh's dad pissed for
his marathon piss.
Man, it was insane.
We had a blast joking about it because now I have the image of little Josh sitting in the bathtub looking at his dad's dick. So I'm just sitting there going, I can't imagine you just sitting in the tub looking and just mouthing the words, my God.
I can't wait to tell everybody about this shit.
Yeah, so now Josh is phobia about letting his family hear our show.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the scariest things is other than HR calls you in and says, can you defend this? The other scary thing is a mom or a dad saying, I heard your show.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
You're like, which one?
Yeah. We weren't talking about a big dick, were we?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In advance.
I'm going to go to church.
Yeah. I'll be there Sunday.
I'll be there Sunday.
I don't think my dad would understand. Like, he would be mad. Even if it's a compliment, he would, what are you talking about me for, old boy?
Yeah.
He would
That's that old school, though.
He would want to kick my ass.
Right.
Yeah,
that's that, like, old school mentality, man.
I wish somebody would slander me that way. Jesus. I mean, I don't get it.
Was your wife going to start a podcast?
Yeah.
My husband got the biggest dick.
There's no chance of anyone ever saying that about me.
No, I think that would be where I would, like, that was the Mick Foley was talking about in his book, how he was talking about Too Cold Scorpio being a genitalic freak. And he's like, the lawyers actually pulled me aside and said, is this something that you can back up? And he's like, could I back it up? He's like, he walked around naked all the time. Half the damn locker room had seen it.
Yeah.
He's like, but honestly, is this something I'm going to get sued for? Like, is he going to have to pull it out and prove to people that it's not that big?
Yeah, like what? Yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah,
like you said, it was huge and it ain't. So you owe us $30,000.
Yeah.
What else? Man, we really got in there for a second.
I mean, I could keep throwing topics at you, but I felt like you were probably like, "Oh man, we got to end pretty soon."
Yeah, I mean, right now we just kind of go and do our thing. I don't know what people's attention span are for this, so I know Rogan can upload a 4-hour thing and people are like, "Oh yeah,
a million downloads or whatever."
So, but you never know how attention spans work until you get like more popular or whatever if people think it's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. But I do appreciate you guys coming by. It's been a blast.
It has been fun, man.
I think
Thank
it's a
you.
good place to stop so we can hold more for the next time.
Because I definitely want to get you guys back
Absolutely.
in here.
Yeah,
this is a blast.
Maybe we can come do you guys' show.
Continue doing it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely. definitely.
Really
I
cool.
think the one thing that I love about the show, like the thought of doing like a podcast by myself, gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't do it. You know, it's almost like I had this bet today to see how many times I could say the other side of the coin. But the other side of the coin
You
is
did say it a few times.
yeah. I realized it halfway through, and I'm like, shit, I'm really loud on that.
I
That's
didn't
like a
even
crutch.
notice.
I do it all the time. I do like get self-conscious about things I'm saying.
But the flip side of the coin is, like, I love doing shows with more than one or two people because I don't feel like when it's just me and Josh, I don't feel like I have to talk so much. I feel like I can sit back and then, like, I'm a good counterpuncher. Like, like my jokes come from talking to people and then throwing a counterpunch in there. If I had to sit down and do this by myself, I'd never come up with anything to joke about. So I love stuff like this. So yeah, definitely thank y'all for having us, and maybe we can come back on sometime.
And where can people find you guys?
You want to give them everything?
Well, on Twitter, we are at P3 Radio #1. On Facebook, just put in your search bar Pop Poncho, and you will see our picture there. And just how you're listening to this podcast right now, go to however you're going to search it and put in P3 Radio 1, all one word, or P3 Radio, all one word. My bad. Take that one off there. But yeah.
And you give out our number? So we have a party line almost. It's like we do have people that call in, and we have had people prank call us, send texts in, and we do have this one epic Bill Dundee where we were talking to Bill and we got cut off, and somehow he didn't get back with us. He got his voicemail. So every once in a while we'll hit this button on our soundboard that goes, "Hey brother, this is Bill Dundee. We got cut off and I had a hell of a time getting back with you." And it'll just be random. We'll just come back to it. But we do have a phone number. Josh, do you want to give that out?
731-300-6675.
And it spells out 731-300
Mork. Like Mork from Ork.
Mork from Ork, yeah.
So
rock and roll. So you guys go check out P3 Radio. These guys are awesome, and their podcast is awesome. Hilarious dudes. We definitely appreciate you guys coming by, and we'll definitely hope to see you guys again. And maybe we can come and hang out with you guys someday.
Definitely.
So that'd be cool. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Check us out on all the social media at the McRADcast. That is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we have a YouTube channel. Like I said, we do plan on doing videos soon. Not soon, but hopefully in the future. So go subscribe to that. And send us an email if you want at stayradpodcast@gmail.com. And always remember to stay rad.